I'm only dreaming, right? Hello and welcome to this talk today. My name is Nicola Zaghini. I am a professional mobile engineer with probably 13 years experience now. I played many roles, as you can see on the slide: engineer, architect, engineering manager, tech lead, all these kind of roles. I spent most of my career in native development. And as you can see there, I got a couple of emoticons. The first one is over an airplane, because I spent most of my career in the airline industry. So if you have flown with, in Europe, in America, in Asia, and you've checked in with your mobile phone or, booked, managed your flight, most likely you played with an app that I actually built or, was architect for. Only recently I moved into cross-platform development, and this is, 4 years ago, so it's not so recent, a bit of experience in there. And this is with the other emoticons that I got in there, which is a lady taking an haircut, because today I work for Phorest, which is a Salon software company for hair, beauty, barber, and spa owners, which provides tools to manage, market, and grow their business. So why I'm here today to tell you about cross-platform, because as a professional engineer that spent a lot of years into native development, I found, after a bit of time, I found myself much more productive and effective as an engineer into the cross-platform domain. So if this is the reason that brings me here, what I would like to basically achieve with this talk is really to stimulate your curiosity and break a little bit of skepticism on cross-platform development. In a way, this is the talk that I really wanted to hear 4 years ago. Okay, how are we gonna do this talk? Through a small story, which is a real story, the story that or how I approach it, cross-platform. So let's start with it. Let's start with a story. The story is divided in 4 quick chapters. The first one talks about quality. The second one talks about developer experience. The other one is the CTO pitch. And finally, how to build a team. Why it's a story? So it's a story of a product line that Phorest had, a B2C, so for customers, doomed to be retired. And the reason was unscalable, completely unscalable. Because Phorest today has more than 8,000 customers. Each one of them is eligible for having its own mobile application, native. We're talking about white label apps, clearly, otherwise would have been totally impossible. But clearly, at that stage 4 years ago was kind of smaller, the size of the company, but still too many apps into the stores to be able to manage, in a decent way. Just think about a single bug fix. How can you fix and deploy thousands of apps in there with the technology that we know the native domain provides us, right? So this is where it all started. And with me pitching React Native to the CTO of the company in order to save the product line. So you may wonder now why a cross-platform technology may save a problem which is of scalability. The reason is that, when you go into a technology, then you bring along a lot of tool and instrumentation that you may not expect. So again, probably in here, the real killer feature was not code reuse, which is something that you think about all the time. You think about cross-platform, but it was another thing. And I'm gonna talk you through that. But before we dive into it, the real important thing that we all want to talk about when we say cross-platform is quality. And I had to convince CTO of the company that with a technology called React Native, I could have provided a quality solution to their customers, which would have not let them regret the native stuff. So how is that even possible? With React Native, your customers touch and feel the native graphic user interface component they are used to. So the UI scroll view has the same bounciness of the original UI scroll view because it is the original native UI scroll view. The label on the screen is a UI label. The button on the screen is a UI button. So there's no real, let's say, nested browser or embedded browser, so your user is actually interacting with the web page. There is no real custom widget rendered in a OpenGL engine, for example, or OpenGL canvas, that's the right word, sorry, that may feel extremely fast, but even too fast for the platform. I'm not used to it. As a user of an iPhone or an Android application, I really want something that looks like exactly the other app in terms of performance, in terms of responsiveness, right? We don't want anything more or anything less. So React Native can give you that. That's why I think the quality is there. So how is that even possible? You really need to understand a little bit of React Native. This is not a course on React Native. It's just a bit of a, let me just give you a little bit of a, let's say a hint on how it works. So this picture is of a couple of puppets, right? They're there. And there is a puppeteer somewhere, which we don't see. And there are some wires, right? So the puppeteer is moving the puppets. The puppets are our UI kit components, if you like. The puppets are the real native graphical user interface component that the user sees and touch. The puppeteers you don't see, which is the JavaScript engine in this case, right? JavaScript brain in React Native. It could be native code or could be not native. Nobody cares because unless you see it, and you don't as a customer, you're not interested. And then you have the wires, which are the conjunction between the two worlds, right? So this is the app that we eventually built. As you can see, it looks like a very normal mobile application. And if we X-ray this app for a second, what we're going to see is that exactly what I explained, but probably in a bit more technical terms. So the blue boxes are the native code base, which has, for example, the React Native SDK into it. And then you have the yellow box, which is the JavaScript engine, which basically makes React Native code run, let's say. In the middle, there is this bridge that connects the two worlds. Let's maybe use a picture which is even a bit more technical. I stole this from a paper, Detecting Proximity with Bluetooth Low Energy Beacons for Cultural Heritage by Paolo Barsocchi and Michele Girolami, because I think that gives a very, very good explanation again of how React Native works at a very high level. You don't have to get into the details, but on the left you got this app which renders the React component tree, because React Native uses React, right? It's all JavaScript, he lives in his own thread. In the middle there is a bridge that bridges the two worlds, exactly as the name implies, and on the right you have the platform OS with everything that you as an experienced native developer know and love. Okay, so this should give you the idea of why React Native can do the thing that I've just explained to you, right? So I really know that I've said already JavaScript too many times to annoy you, because that was something that annoyed me at that time, right? And in fact, I also found this beautiful sort of a joke on the internet, which it's really spot on, right? So I think I'm the blue guy in this case and tell, hey, look, this is my favorite language, JavaScript. It's not true, because I'm gonna tell you that there's another one, my favorite language, in a second. And you are there as an iOS developer looking behind my shoulder while I sweat because JavaScript is completely drunk, as you can see over there. So I think this is one of the first things we have to demystify for sure. But yeah, let's go through the story and we will talk about that as well. It was just very funny and very timely, if you like. So, next slide. So again, just to give you a couple of numbers there to explain that, when I say quality, I'm not talking about proof of concept. Of these applications, we have more than 4,000 live in the store at the moment. They all change based on the branding. We have roughly 12,000 daily active users, and those apps, they do process roughly 2,000 daily appointments, taking money as well and everything. So we're not talking about a proof of concept. We're talking about something which is really serious in a way. Again, quality, this is how they look like when you switch the theme, because we have the luxury of having multiple themes. So again, it doesn't really feel like something that is not of high quality, if you like. Just to close the quality chapter, I really want to quote here probably the person which is most interested on providing quality solutions to their customers, which is Ronan Parseval, the CEO of Phorest, which stated, all in all, this is one of the most impressive things the company has ever done, as a testament of the quality that you can produce with cross-platform. Developer experience. This is another chapter that I had to, go through, because clearly the company already had native code base, native developer a little bit. And anyway, it's truly, truly important even that I communicate to you, my audience, developers, what is the developer experience for cross-platform. We need to please our customer, but we also need to please ourselves in a way, because, we live with this every day for a lot of hours, right? So let's jump in there. And the first thing I need to tell you is that we're not going to use JavaScript, we're going to use TypeScript, which is a completely different language. TypeScript is, as the name implies, is very, very much typed, is a very modern language. You won't regret Swift or Kotlin, because they're very, very similar one to each other. It's a very alive language. It's not something that is old or that, it's not used. Is really, really a beautiful language to play with. And you can even write JavaScript within TypeScript if you really want to, but in general, I think TypeScript is a very beautiful language to work with. The IDE is another very important topic, because personally I was extremely skeptical about the possibility of debugging, for example, the possibility to have auto-completion of the code, the possibility of refactoring. And I can tell you, it's just much, much better than I used to play with Xcode. In reality, I used Xcode and AppCode in my previous life, let's say, because AppCode has a much better refactoring tooling. Now, the IDE for TypeScript eventually are extremely powerful. You can go from the free VS Code to IntelliJ powered, let's say, IDEs. And the experience over there is just at pair, if not better than, definitely better actually, sorry, of what it used to be with the native with Xcode. Sorry to say, but that's the reality of things, especially on the refactory side of things. Fast refresh, it's another thing that adds dramatically to the developer experience. The possibility, as we have seen Puppeteers and Puppets, to change the Puppeteer at every command save. If you change the Puppeteer at every command save, it means that your app behaves instantaneously different. So you don't have to stop, recompile, wait for this and that. You just hit command save and your app changes the behavior right away. It may seem like, or at least to my ears at the very beginning, it was like, oh, it's a nice thing, but I'm used to compiling things. True, it's true. After you live with that for a while, you will get very annoyed about compiling things. React. I spent my previous life a lot of time, preparing talks and doing talks in relation to architecture for iOS development. What sort of architecture we're going to do, blah, 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 blah. React. When I seen React, I realized that it was a beautiful, not even a framework, because React is a library. It doesn't even have to stand a framework, but a beautiful tool or to build mobile application. It's even more so now that React support hooks compared to previous React, which was a bit of an adaptation to the events that happen on mobile. Right now is such a spot-on thing, declarative, fully declarative, in that it requires a little bit of mind switch compared to how we used to build mobile application, because being declarative means you state, sorry, probably I need to choose better words, but you say what is the state of your application, and your application behave and changes in relation to the state, versus checking how is your application and modifying that. So it's declarative, is much more powerful. And the time you start playing with it, you will realize how much better it is, or much easier it is to build a mobile application this way with React. Community. Another really important thing when you evaluate the developer experience is the community, because no matter what, you're gonna have trouble. Whatever it is, you're gonna have trouble. And if you don't have a community, if you don't have people, there's no Stack Overflow answers, there is no even conferences, it's very difficult to handle, right? So the community, you can check for yourself and do a bit of Google, is very big around React Native now. And last but not least is this possibility that adds up to the developer experience, given we, as a mobile engineer, usually we're DevOps. We distribute our own apps. We maintain the relationship with the App Store, app reviews and all these kind of things. It's stuff that we do and we know. So the over-the-air updates, the possibility to send a bug fix over the air to all the installed application you have, that's a real game changer. That's absolutely a game changer. And in reality, if you think about my use case and the story that I started with an application which has thousands of installation that you really need to update all of them if there is a bug fix, this was the killer feature I was looking at. But in order to get there, I really needed to have React Native with me and the cross-platform power, right? So this is a quote of myself. I know probably it's not great, but I quoted myself. No money can convince me back to the previous way of working, in fairness. As a developer, that's 100%. I really hope, I try to give you a bit of a glimpse in here, but absolutely the developer experience is amazing, in fairness. Let's go. Oh, sorry, I forgot that I put here those videos. This is what an over-the-air update looks like. So as you can see, the app boots. We've created a panel that explains to our user that there is a better code base that can improve their experience. It's very, very quick. As you can see, the app reboots quickly. And after that, the new source code is there. Those are two applications that we have on the store. But I really wanted to show you that because it's something that maybe it could be cryptic otherwise. So now the CTO pitch. Let's go and have a look at some metrics and numbers that I used to convince that React Native was something good to play with. Okay, I put at the top quality because without quality, we don't really go anywhere, right? We said it already. It's really, really important that we have quality there. And then we can talk about the first thing that everybody thinks when you say cross-platform, code reuse. So I can state very safely that if you build an app, there's nothing strange with that, you have 90% code reuse, because it's very, very rare that you have to say, if is iOS do this, if is Android do that. It happens, but 2% of your source code, and source codes can become very large, right? So it's not really a big number. But to me, the code reuse was never the killer feature of cross-platform, was never hit, Fine, great, amazing, but that's not the killer feature of cross-platform. It's what it implies. What does it imply? It implies 50% cost reduction. Why is 50% cost reduction? It's 50% cost reduction because most likely you have an iOS and an Android app and you build a single time. If you build a single time, you have already cut in half your costs because you can have a single engineer. But most likely, let's say, I find it difficult to explain this to you because otherwise you're not going to trust me. But the 50% cost reduction, it could be pushed even more. And the reason is, again, React. I've witnessed that with myself, with the product owner which I worked with when we started this endeavor into cross-platform, with the designer, which we were all kind of people coming from the native world. And we were all shocked by the speed we could put together a single app, let's say the iOS app, without even realizing that by just installing that into the Android app, into the Android phone, we already had that app as well. So first, 50% cost reduction, to me, it's even, you can push it much further because React is a very fast library to build application. So yeah, I really want to give you that. I don't want to push it more than 50, otherwise you won't believe me, but it's more. What does this imply? It also implies that you have a faster time to market, at least 50% more, because you must have had one iOS and one Android. Those two developers, those two guys are now insisting on the same code base. So unless you plan it very poorly, so they step on each other's toes, if they don't, then you have 50% time to market reduction for sure, clearly. There are other implications, resource utilization. You will never be into the situation whereby, for example, there's a bug on iOS and a bug on Android because the bugs are going to be common and every engineer can basically contribute to the same product, to the same app, rather than, oh, I'm on iOS, I'm on Android, that's not my thing, and so on. Plus, another very, very important thing, I had a lot of trouble with that in the past, in my previous past, in relation to uniformity and feature parity. Because it's very difficult, as you may have witnessed, if you have a product which is in both platforms, Having uniformity and feature parity is very difficult if there are two different source codes. Even if you sit an ISO and Android engineer very close to each other, the feature parity is very hard to achieve. In here, it's by design, clearly, because there is a code reuse. Again, as you can see, it's beautiful to have 80%, 98% of code reuse. But in reality, is everything else which matters for real. 50% code reduction, 50% time to market reduction, full resource utilization, and uniformity. Over-the-air updates are really a key differentiator here. It's a killer feature to me for React Native. For what it implies, again, it does imply rocket time, faster lead time, rocket time, faster release frequency. They both add up to software delivery performance, to great software delivery performance. So let me explain a little bit. What is a lead time? A lead time is the time that you measure at the moment that you check in something into your source control to the moment that it's production available for your customer. This is a lead time. It's really, really important to have it as short as possible, especially if you have critical bugs and stuff like that you really want to release, right? Say that for some reason you can't take payment and all your customers are stuck with that. You really would want to put that fix out as soon as it hits Git and basically your QA says it's fine, right? With native development, we know that is going to take at least a couple of days of review time. There's no chance. We are all used to send email to Apple to ask for expedite review, but it is still a lot of time. With the over-the-air updates, I personally send those kind of critical bug fixes, mission critical bug fixes in a matter of 30 minutes. Find the code, write a test, fix the code, send it to QA, out it is. The release frequency, it's yet again another extremely important metric because you could technically release 5 times a day, 10 times a day. It doesn't really matter. You can release as fast as you want. This is a luxury that changes quite a lot the game of mobile development. It's all perfectly in terms and condition of both Apple and Google Play Store. The really important bit is that you don't add big features without going through the App Store, but you can add tweaks to the current existing features that are declared into your description and so on. And clearly you can fix bugs which will give your customer a much, much better experience, right? So those two things, again, are extremely, extremely important. Let's go on and talk about the team. And here is probably the most difficult conversation part. What about the current code base, right? You have really two options here. You either extend what you have in a sort of a hybrid approach, sometimes called brown bag approach in React Native, which means your app is half native and half React Native. It can coexist. I've done this. It's definitely something that I would advise if your app is very, very big and you can't do a big bang rewrite. But my personal advice is don't plan this to be your future for too long. Plan this as, removing chunks of your application, changing them from being native to React Native one at a time. So you are never going dark, let's say, with your app. But at the same time, you don't plan to have a native code base and a React Native code base coexisting together forever. That would be a mistake. The other option is to rewrite. Why you do this? You do this when your app is probably a bit dated anyway. You want to have a revamping in how it looks like, or how it feels, maybe features. But always remember, you work at twice the normal speed you used to. So maybe you can evaluate that. You can go dark a little bit, rewrite the app, and then have a big bang once it's done. We have witnessed it both in Phorest. You can go and find a lot of examples out there in the wild on Google of companies doing both approaches. I think they're both valid. Just my personal advice is don't try to pretend you want to live with the hybrid approach forever. That's not scalable. Okay. What about your current employees? Okay, one of the most important things on employees is that you need buy-in from them. You need to buy in, you need to have employees happy for what they do. If they're not, be prepared for leavers. But also be prepared for new lovers. Believe me, that is going to happen. And I also have a story for that. Because before joining Phorest, I actually I ran an R&D in my previous company to exactly spike React Native, understand, if that was something of quality, could deliver quality, blah, 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 all these kind of things. And I brought together with me, a few iOS engineers, few Android engineers. On iOS, it's my past, so I could move myself very easily. On Android, it's not my thing. So basically, I got the best engineer in the company that day, on that endeavor, let's say. And what happened? It was under Christmas. I got this Slack message from the engineer which told me, look, this thing you're asking me to do, can't be done. Probably we were bridging quite a lot at that stage. We were trying to be in the hybrid world. I see how the hybrid works. That's impossible, can't do it, just blah, 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 blah. And I said, look, you are the most important person for Android in the company. So if you think you're the most skilled, if you think that that's not doable, don't stress. I trust your word. I go back to the chief architect, that was architect at this stage, and I'm telling him, look, it's not doable that way. That way is not doable. So once you put someone into this sort of a pattern, mental pattern, the answer was, okay, give me another 3 days. Give me another 3 days, but I'm quite sure that's impossible, blah, blah, blah. Came back after 3 days. The work was done. I don't remember exactly the specifics, but I do remember. I did it. It's working perfect. It's also even clean. I'm very, very happy. You know what? He was a lover, but he also was a liver, because basically for us it was just an R&D. The R&D finished, and this engineer was so happy for what they've learned. They figured out what they had. That they said that they moved to a company that was doing React Native already. It was a bit of a shock for us because we lost a very good engineer, but at the same time, it was a good witness of when you break this initial barrier of, I want to work with this, I don't care about we forced this guy a little bit, and after we forced and put this guy outside of his comfort zone, he didn't want at the beginning, but then it was like, I'm not going back. In a way, it's the same feedback that I gave you 2 slides ago. I'm not going back. Anyway, let me give you the golden rule for building the team, which I already stated, but I'll restate. Oh, no, this is really important. I didn't tell you before. Experienced mobile native developer in the team. Don't pretend that if you do cross-platform, you don't need native developers. You really, really need native developers in there, because React Native has that React part and the native part, and you need to tame both of them. So if you have a team, you really have to have at least one iOS engineer, one Android engineer. Experienced, able to build mobile in the past, so they know what it means to build mobile. Then you can build on top of that. But that's really, really important that you have those figures. Otherwise, you will find yourself into trouble. There is other tools like Expo, but in general, please have an iOS and Android engineer. They will speed you up dramatically. Engineers that buy in and want to learn, okay, because if you can't hire for a React Native specific person, you will want to try to train them, or anyway, you want people that are very, very interested. And in fact, let's jump into the how to hire. Again, strong native background experience, iOS and Android. You need to know what does it mean to build an app. It's really, really important, even for all the DevOps part. And again, the learning attitude and the willing to get out of their comfort zone if you're open to, like we do mostly, to get people that are pretty much only iOS or Android engineers, but they really want to challenge themselves. If you find this attitude, if they have the experience, you won't regret to hire them, because basically it's a perfect mixture to make a team able to, to be successful in reality. So to recap very quickly, we talked about the quality, how React Native works more or less. Probably you get now an idea. The user touches the real thing. Developer experience is just great. I can't state it any differently. The CTO pitch, the metrics, the numbers you've seen over there, they're a very, very important number. The speed, the cost reduction, time to market, and overall, the delivery experience, which changes very, very dramatically. And build a team. What sort of person you should look at, or what sort of team you should have in order to be successful. That's everything for today. Thank you very much. If you want talk with me, just get in touch. Here's the Twitter handle and the email. Thanks a lot. Till next time. Cheers.